Welcome to the Dwig America podcast. And now your host, Todd Dwiggins.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever or whenever you're listening. Welcome to the Dwig America podcast, coming to you from my studio here in lovely Central Texas. It's a beautiful 68 degrees and sunny today. It has been a very gray and rainy few weeks here with a couple of nice days. And it seems like when I have a nice day, it's time for me to do a podcast. So today, beautiful day. So it inspired me to get on here and get one knocked out. Okay, on today's podcast, I'll continue an update on what's going on with the play. I'm going to tell a story about something that happened recently that I'm going to go ahead and turn into a life lesson. And then I'm going to introduce a new segment called Letter Time. So sit back, relax, let's get started. So as you can tell, again, very early in this whole podcast process. So I'm working on a lot of different things. And so first of all, let's talk about the play, because I'm sure everyone is just fascinated by what's going on with the play. So they have been doing what's called blocking, which means you basically choreograph where you're at, where you're standing, what's going on during certain periods of dialogue and how to move on the stage and such. A whole new process for me, something I never really thought about in a play. I just went and thought, oh, they memorize their lines and just go do it. But there's kind of a choreography with it. And so we're doing that right now and just trying to memorize some dialogue. I don't have any real dialogue except for I've been asked to be the understudy for Fezziwig. So who knows how that'll turn out. But anyway, interesting experience and enjoying it. And again, as the process goes on, I'll keep you updated just because I'm a curious person how things work. And if you are too, let me be your behind the scenes guide to how a play comes together. So, okay, enough of that. So here's my little story for the week that I've turned into a life lesson. So my wife gets up very early in the morning and goes running. And so she's asked if I would be willing to get up with her and ride my bike along with her. And I was doing it, but it was really kind of an arduous thing for me to do. You think riding a bike's not hard, but I felt like I was just really having to struggle on the bike, and I worked on the gears because we went uphill quite a bit, but still seemed like exhausting. And so, again, it's early in the morning, it's dark out, and finally my wife notices that the tires on my bike, and it's a brand new bike, brand spanking new, got it for our anniversary this year. But she said, my tires are low. And I'm like, that's weird. So I mess around with them and realized they're really low on air. So I realized I'd been going around on these flat tires. Now, once I pumped them up and they were all fired up, they were all pumped up and firm and everything, the riding was much more enjoyable and smoother and really enjoyed it. And so how I decided to spin this for myself, for my life lesson, is there's a lot of things in life that we do to sort of deflate our tires. A lot of times it's discouragement or listening to those voices that may not be uplifting and make us feel bad about ourselves, or we listen to those voices on our head that tell us maybe we're not as good as maybe we think we should be. And so a lot of times that's kind of the letting the air out of our own tire. So we drag, and it's a struggle, and it's hard to move forward and hard to move on and hard to feel good. But I think as we fill ourselves up with positive thinking, the one thing that we learned as we've moved around the country is wherever we live, we've decided we're going to make the best of it and enjoy it. A lot of people I noticed growing up were like, well, I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be happy when that happens. I'll be happy if I live here. I'll be happy if I live there. The thing is, you can be happy wherever you are. It doesn't mean you're in the ideal circumstance, but wherever you are, as they say, grow where you're planted and just be positive, and things will be better, even if circumstances don't change. So there you go. There's me on my soapbox. That's just my thoughts. I'm not any smarter than anyone else. Just my thoughts for the day. Okay, moving on from that is what I will call letter time. So I'm going to play an example of a commercial that I would have heard, a type of commercial I would have heard when I was growing up. These are kind of commercials where it was a woman who is basically telling you why she uses this product. So here we go.
Who says Dynamo works better than powders?
Well, I do, because with just 1/4 cup, I can do the whole wash and treat the stains. Like when the children are on a picnic and they wipe fried chicken grease on their clothes. I just rub a little Dynamo right on the spot. It really does work better than powders. And as long as I have children running around, I won't go back to powders.
Okay, so there you go. There's an example of one of those types of commercials that I heard growing up as a kid. Now, being the kind of guy I am, I always thought those were kind of weird commercials. Like, really? Do people talk like that? Like, it sounds like, they make it sound like these people are really into this product, like that they have written into these companies saying, hey, my kids wipe bacon or chicken grease on their shirts, and I won't use anything but your product to clean it out. I'll never go back to powders. Like, really? Do people take the time to sit down and get a hold of these companies? I just thought it was weird. So I thought, what if I actually did that? What if I actually sat down and wrote an actual letter, not an email, not a text, not a phone message, an actual letter, and mailed it, snail mail, old school style, to one of these companies, and in that type of style, like, thank you for cleaning a stain. And I put my own little twist on it. So this is for letter time. I'm going to read a letter that I've sent. This is to Procter & Gamble, basically the makers of Tide detergent, and telling them that they got a stain out. And let's see if I get a response. So here is the letter to Procter & Gamble, makers of Tide. Here we go. Dear makers of Tide detergent, before I begin, let me tell you don't make it easy to find your mailing address. Your address does bring up a question, though. You are the Procter & Gamble company, and you're located on Procter & Gamble Plaza. Did you name yourself after the plaza, or was this just an interesting coincidence? Now, for my reason for writing you today. It started several months ago. I was with my family, who I must say now are the most delightful group of people you'd ever want to find yourself around. But I digress. Anyway, I'm with my family at a local barbecue joint. They have a delicious cut of brisket that will make you grateful to be alive. I get a little bit crazy and decide, you know what? Today is the day I live on the edge and order some baby back ribs. Can I digress one more time and just say that I find the term baby back a little disturbing? Anyway, I put those qualms aside, drawn in by the delightful smell coming from the barbecue pit. A plate of delicious, savory rack of baby back ribs arrived at my table. The scent that entered my nostrils was intoxicating. I greedily grabbed a rib and lifted it happily to my watering mouth. Then, to my utmost horror, a glob of warm, deep, brownish red barbecue sauce left the rib and hit my shirt like a bullseye. I'm going to digress here once more. This was not just an ordinary shirt. The shirt I am referring to came into my possession by way of my brother. He'd been visiting me from South Carolina, another place known for wonderful barbecue. Unfortunately, after his visit, we discovered he had left one of his favorite shirts. We found it in the side drawer of the guest bedroom. I called him immediately because I knew it was one of his favorites. It was white. He said I could keep it and wear it until he visited it again. He is such a generous guy, it brings tears to my eyes. You can imagine how upset I was to Solly this special gift. I returned home and put it in the washing machine with a lot of other whites, also mostly stained with food, but not all food stains. They are whites after all. I used Tide because I wouldn't trust my clothes to any other brand, especially after the rash that developed after using a generic brand in college. After the wash and dry cycle, the shirt came out spotless. Thank you, Tide. A quick follow-up. A few weeks ago, my brother returned and I gave him his shirt back. As I gave it to him, he told me, "Oh, did I leave that at your house?" What a joker. Thanks again, Tide. So there you go. That's my version of the letter that these companies supposedly get from people extolling the virtues of their product. So my twist, my little odd way. So let's find out, do I get a response? Because I've gotten responses from companies before for various letters. We'll see, is this letter going to make the cut? Will I get a response? And what type of response will I get? That's what I'm curious about. All right, so we're going to finish today with a little business. I'm always looking for ideas, topics, thoughts to make this better. So if you have an idea for a topic or something to do with the podcast, my email now is dwigamerica@gmail.com. Very easy. dwigamerica@gmail.com. This podcast can be found on SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter, and you can listen to it on the Dwig America YouTube channel. So if that's an easier place for you to find it, go right ahead and go there. Thanks so much for listening. On behalf of Sports Director Skip Stevens, Weather Girl April Bowman, Todd Wiggins saying so long, everybody.